I'm actually going to disable this whole system because the trigger box that I used is really big, and for the class blueprint I'd like to work with something a little bit smaller. So I'm going to right click on my toggle visibility in pinned here, and I'm going to break all links, and that's going to cause the whole thing to stop working. That's fine, I can always re-enable it if I need to, but I'll go ahead and close this. So here's my room. I might as well get rid of some of these point lights because I am going to use point lights in my class blueprint. So let's just take them. That looks like it's the one on the candle. I'm going to get rid of that. I've got one for the chandelier. I could keep the chandelier one. It's not doing any harm. Or I can get rid of it. It's fine. The other thing I'm going to do is head over to my content browser. Let's go into the regular content. I can right click here and make a new folder. This will be my blueprints folder because unlike the level blueprint, the class blueprint will actually generate objects. The other thing that I want to do in preparation is go through my props and see if I've got textures assigned to them. If you don't, go ahead, double click. I'm going to be doing this with my candle holder and my candlestick, so I want to be sure that the candle holder has my metal material and the candle has some kind of like light, bright material. That looks good. So I'm going to close those, back to content, and here we are in blueprints. I'm going to go ahead and make a new blueprint class. The blueprint class that I'm going to make is going to be an actor class. That makes it really easy for me to put things into the world. There are other types, and as you personally become more complicated, I'm sure that you'll work through some of them because they deal with things like player controls and pawns and characters, but for us, I just want to keep things simple. I personally am a very simple person. We're going to stick with the actor class. And this one is going to be my candle blueprint. Double click. The class blueprint is a little bit different from the level blueprint, and the first and most immediate thing that you'll see is that instead of just having an event graph, I have three tabs. One is a viewport, one is a construction script, and the third one is the event graph. In addition to that, over here on the side, I have the ability to add components, which is pretty neat. And over here, I have details for all of the components. Across the top, it's very similar. I can compile, I can save, I can play. So we'll get into all of that. But the first thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to just set this up with some objects. So back in my content browser, here in props, I am going to pull in my candle and my candlestick. So this is the candle holder. This one is the candle. I'm going to pull the candle holder up so that it replaces the default scene root. Make new root, and that gets rid of the weird ball in the middle here, and that is my candle. So what I'd like to do with this is I'd like to have a point light that turns on and off, so it looks like the candle is turning on and off. So let me go into add components, and I'm going to add a point light. We'll move that up so that it's right at the very tip of the candle, and then I'll adjust it. The attenuation radius is way too big. I just want this to be right at the tip of the candle. I might even go smaller. 20, what's smaller than 20? 10 is smaller than 20. The intensity is super high. Candles are not that bright. And let's make it nice and kind of orangey colored. Maybe we'll go a little brighter because we do want to exaggerate things. Let's go up to 500 there. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to need here is I'm going to need some kind of a box collider. So let's come in here and I'm just going to type in collider. So let's try this box collision, and there we go. I get a box. Just like with the particle system, I find it a little bit difficult to figure out what scale everything is here. So I'm going to click compile, and then we'll go back to my content browser, blueprints, and I'm going to take the blueprint class and drag it into my scene. I think I just added it back to my blueprint itself, which is kind of funny. Let's turn that down, try that again, and I'll stick it, here. Did I put it on the floor? It might be on the floor. No, it's on the bench. The bench is a great place. Love that bench. Okay. So now that it's in the scene, I can kind of get a better sense of the scope of that collision box. Let's pull this back up. And the first thing that I want you to be aware of is that any change that I make here, let's see if I can get this to scale a little bit. I think I renamed it instead of changing to my scale tool. Let's come back here, change to the scale tool. Any change that I make here will be propagated onto the 3D scene. So I can totally change the size of this box, and it will change live in the scene. So you may want to take a few minutes and really set up the scope of your box. The other thing I'd like to do with this is I'd kind of like to do some kind of really cool thing where the player has to interact. So maybe instead of just walking into the box, they also have to press a key. So the last component I'm going to add here, let's add some text. I'll add a text render. The text render, let's call it a help tip. And then over here, I can change it so that instead of saying text, it says press, let's use F to toggle light. You can change the alignment, you can change the world size, which is good because it is gigantic right now. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Let's see what 12 looks like. Still really big. How about 6? That's a little better. And let's move that up a little higher so that people can actually see it, and maybe center it. Okay, that's a little better. So now I've got all of my elements together, and there they all are. I'll just compile this. You'll see that they all appear in the scene, which is pretty great. And the other nice thing is that if I put more than one of these in here, let's grab it, and this one we'll put on, I don't want it to be too close. I was aiming for the sideboard, so let's move it over there. Not out of the room, just on the sideboard. So you can see I can have as many of these as I want in the scene, and that'll make it really easy for me to make a whole bunch of things for my player to interact with pretty easily. So that is me setting up my initial class blueprint. I will pause here to let you get your initial setup put together, and then in the next lesson I will start setting up the event graphs for all of my blueprints.